Great leaders, they don't celebrate wins. They celebrate the people who are making the wins possible. If you want someone to care about your strategic initiatives, about their work, they first have to feel cared for. So the leading indicator of all the lagging indicators you say you want is human energy. You matter to someone else. Everybody here is thinking about someone, and they're probably not thinking about a big action. They're thinking about small interactions that accumulate over time. Relationship satisfaction in all areas of life, including work, is almost impossible if we don't feel seen, heard, known, valued, and needed by the other person. Right? Quality relationships depend on the experience of what we're talking about today. Mattering. Affirming someone is saying, here's their unique gifts and how those unique gifts made a difference. So what you're doing is you're giving someone the specific evidence of their unique significance. Leaders go first.
Yeah.
So if you're in a culture where this is not happening for you, you're a leader. Leaders go first. And here's the magic of this, is we call it the boomerang effect of mattering. No one can take away your power to show up in your next interaction and see, hear, and value the other person, even if you disagree with them. People try to take that power away from you by baiting you into being disgusted by someone else.
Welcome to The Inner Edge, a podcast about leadership, self-mastery, resilience, and reinvention. So Zach, as you know, I'm thrilled to have you on today. I love your book. I discovered your book by accident, The Power of Mattering. And so I definitely wanted to have you on the show because I think there's so much for you to share with the audience that I think is so timely, so important right now. So first, let me just ask you this off-the-wall question, and it's kind of a basic one. What made you want to write a book about mattering, and what is that? Because when you see the book, The Power of Mattering, not everybody understands what that is. So talk about that.
Yeah, some people have asked me, why did you want to write this book? And to be honest with you, if you've ever written a book, it's not necessarily that I wanted to go through the process of writing this book. I felt like I had to write this book. I mean, since 2019, when I did my first study with a group of university janitors on how people in frontline cleaning invisible occupations come to experience meaningfulness in their work. We've known that it is not big gestures, it is not big actions that help create a sense of significance and meaning and motivation in work that lasts. We've found that it's small moments where people feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valued, they feel needed. And we've called these moments of mattering. Mattering is the experience of feeling significant to the people around us that comes from feeling valued and adding value by them and to them. And but what was happening is over the last 5 years, we started getting these reports and this data that more people than ever reported that they felt invisible in work. Work Human reported that 30% of people self-report they feel quote unquote invisible or flat out ignored. 65% of people feel underappreciated or undervalued. 8 out of 10 people feel lonely. And in January of 2025, although we'd been seeing this, disengagement was at its lowest that it's been in a decade. Okay, so this is all despite the employee engagement services industry becoming a $1 billion industry. This is despite people investing billions in well-being programs, DEI programs, perks. Wages have actually increased 42% in 8 years, which is one of the highest rates ever. I know inflation has increased, but wages have gone up. Yet 7 out of 10 people are emotionally uninvested in their work. Why, right? And if you look at 2 data points, one is that just 39% of people say someone cares for them as a person in work, as a person at work. Just 30% say someone sees and invests in their unique potential. And so we were seeing all of this as it was coming up, and we were saying, oh gosh, we know what this is. This is not a disengagement crisis.
Right.
This is not a loneliness epidemic. It's not a technology addiction. It's a mattering deficit. People are not having that fundamental need to be significant to those around them met. So we started codifying the skills that leaders need to have to create these moments of mattering at an interactional level. And that's what led to the book. It's something that we had to do.
I love the topic, as you know, and I like the way you just articulated that. So let me ask you just like a fundamental question. You use the word see, and you use a book. And in my profession as a consultant and as a coach, one of the things that you do is you see people, or people see, they feel seen. And I guess in this world that we're living in, there's a deficit of seeing people. So, what
Hmm.
do you think it means to see someone?
Hmm. That's a great question. And I think that when we feel seen, we feel understood. We feel that our inner experience, our inner voice, our inner world becomes known to somebody else. And the difference between feeling seen and unseen is, for example, if I go into a meeting and I'm with a team, right? Feeling seen is having my team members know that my parent is in the hospital and I'm a caretaker. And so that's affecting how I come into work that day. Feeling seen is having somebody know that and notice that there might be a feeling of frustration behind the words that I'm saying, and they dig into that feeling and they come to understand that feeling. Feeling fully seen as a human being is having someone be able to name my uniqueness relative to others. And that's why feeling seen is the most elemental form of feeling that you matter. And it's also why mattering is different from terms like inclusion or belonging that we've heard a lot about,
Right.
right? Mattering is much more elemental. I have 2 elementary school kids, so recess drama is top of mind right now. I'll use a recess example and tie it back to how feeling seen is important. Belonging is being picked for the team, right? It's feeling welcomed and connected to a group. But I can feel like I belong in a group and not feel that I matter to individuals in that group, not feel seen by individuals in that group. Inclusion is being able to take an equal active role in a group. It's being asked to play in the game, being invited to play in the game. But mattering is feeling that the team wouldn't be complete without you.
Mhm.
Mattering is feeling significant to individuals in the group. And that's what's been missing, that interpersonal skill of seeing, fully seeing others and coming to truly understand others and being interested in others. So being seen is how we become known to the world. It's when our inner experiences, the details, ebbs and flows of our lives become known and remembered and checked in on by those around us. And it
Yeah.
is a skill.
Yeah. So you talk about skill. And so, right away, what I think about is how people say, okay, what is it that I need to do to show people that they matter? So it's do. But I guess the question I would ask you, Zach, is who do you need to be in order to show people that they matter? Because being and doing are different.
Mm. Well, think about the time in your life when you most felt that you mattered to someone else. I mean, everybody listening, just take a moment to think about that and think about what that person did, what that person said, how they showed up for you. Everybody here's thinking about someone, and they're probably not thinking about a big action. They're thinking about small interactions that accumulate over time. And the question for yourself is, am I being that person for someone else? Am I doing those things? Am I adopting those skills for someone else intentionally? And so when we've asked this question to thousands of people, when you most feel that you matter to a leader, what are they doing? And that's how we got our data. I mean, this is actually a great
So what
question.
are they doing?
Well, this is a great question you can ask to your people. I mean, the
Yeah.
most practical thing you can do right now as a leader is go ask your people, when you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing? And write it down, write those things down and do more of those things. I mean, you could ask this to anybody in your life that you have a relationship
That's what
with.
I was going to say. It's not just at work,
Right.
right? Yeah.
But because what we know is relationship satisfaction in all areas of life, including work, is almost impossible if we don't feel seen, heard, known, valued, and needed by the other person. Right? Quality relationships depend on the experience of what we're talking about today, mattering. And so we asked thousands of people that question. We surveyed thousands of people, and it came down to 3 major things. People feel that they matter when they're noticed. So we talked about feeling seen, and we talked about feeling heard. They feel that they matter when they feel affirmed. This is not being appreciated or recognized. Appreciation is showing general gratitude for who someone is. Recognition is showing gratitude for what someone does, their performance. But affirmation is showing somebody how their uniqueness, their unique gifts make a unique impact, a difference. And then
How
people,
would that be different? So hold that thought for a second, because I think people are probably wondering, okay, wait a minute, Zach, how is that different than me recognizing someone?
recognizing,
Affirming, recognizing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So recognizing someone is, you could give them an award, you could give them a pay raise, you could say, hey, look at what this person did. But affirming someone is saying, here's their unique gifts and how those unique gifts made a difference.
Yeah.
Affirm comes from the Latin root affirmare, which means to firm up or make stronger. So what you're doing is you're giving someone the specific evidence of their unique significance. When you just recognize somebody, usually it's not specific. It doesn't share what's unique about that person relative to other people. And we have an inherent need for uniqueness. And you can give recognition through an award, through a program. You cannot affirm somebody through an award or a program. You can only affirm somebody interpersonally. This is what a lot of organizations get wrong about appreciation and recognition. They just do appreciation. They just do recognition. But the dissonance that happens when an individual gets an award, gets a pay increase, gets a promotion, is told how much they add value, but then they go into work every day and they feel unseen, unheard by the people around them, that dissonance is almost insurmountable for an organization, because it doesn't matter. There is no award, there is no pay increase, there is no perk that can make up for the daily experience of feeling insignificant. The last thing we found is that people feel needed. They feel relied on. They feel irreplaceable. And I know for some executives listening, that might be hard to hear because we've been taught, don't forget you're replaceable at work, as some sort of bizarre motivation tactic. Like, think about that, really. If you want someone to be motivated, the last thing you want them to do is think they and their efforts are dispensable. In fact, it's antithetical to everything we know about human psychology. When people feel replaceable, they will act replaceable. They'll go up the street for an extra 25 cents on the hour like that. But when people feel irreplaceable, they act irreplaceable. So when people feel that someone says to them, for example, regularly, like, if it wasn't for you, or when people measurably show them how their tasks are necessary for tangible, measurable, necessary objectives, it could show them that, it's powerful. And I think it can be different for each person, how each person feels noticed, affirmed, and needed. But those things seem central in every occupation, every generation, every culture. For example, there's probably no one that's sitting here being like, I'm a Gen Xer, I'm a boomer, so I prefer to feel unimportant or unseen or insignificant. It cuts across all generations. It's the uniting need to feel noticed, affirmed, and needed. I've never met anybody who said, I don't really need that. But how we experience it is different. So ask that question. Make sure your leaders are asking that question. When you feel that you matter to me, when you feel that you matter here, what is happening?
How do you do that when you're not feeling noticed, affirmed, or needed? Because I find in organizations, I'll see, a lot of people at mid-level or even senior level executives, I'll be like, I don't feel valued.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody has a board, everybody has someone up above them, right? And the key is, the first thing when people say to me, Zach, what do I do if my leader doesn't do this for me? I always say, do you do it for them? Right. Often the people above us, we actually expect culture to magically happen to us.
Right, exactly.
Instead of being active constructors of the culture we say we want. The quality of your culture is merely the accumulation and average of the quality of your interactions in your organization. It does not matter what you say your culture is. It does not matter what your board says that are the rules of engagement. It matters what you experience every day. There's this principle in psychology called the complementarity principle. It goes like this. If, say, you're my leader, Janet, and you never check in on me, you never affirm me, you never show me my worth beyond what I do or what I don't do or my quarterly earnings report. If I start checking in with you and asking you about your life, how you're doing, if I start thanking you, showing you the difference that you're making for me, psychologists find that almost always you'll start doing it for me. This is the responsibility of leadership. Leaders go first.
Yeah.
So if you're in a culture where this is not happening for you, you're a leader. Leaders go first. And here's the magic of this, is we call it the boomerang effect of mattering. Mattering tends to beget mattering. Like if you go into the grocery store and you don't want to go to the grocery store and you're feeling miserable. If you go in and instead you make the choice to learn the clerk's name, you say to them, hey, I just want to let you know, I know it's a really hard job that you're doing. And I know you have a complicated life. I'm just glad you're here today. Just thank you for being here today. And you do that. You make yourself do that. Research finds you feel better after. You feel that you matter more because you saw the impact that you made. So leaders go first. It takes a lot of courage to care, especially in these times where hardcore culture is coming back. Command and control is becoming in vogue again. But, people try to control what they don't understand. Leaders who can't connect tend to control. It's easier, it's a shortcut, and it doesn't work in the long term. So have the courage to care, make the choice to lead, and do it first. Do it first for those who are above you and on the side of you.
I love that. So Zach, as you talk, what comes up for me is, you can't fake this. Right. And so many people will say to me, and I've heard this before, is, well, I need to be authentic and I just don't have time for all of this. I don't have time for this. We've got things to do, got goals, we've got results. How can I spend time on this too? People just get with the program. They know that they have a job. That's why they're here. And so they're at the table. So, I don't have time for all of this.
Yeah. This is not
Right?
about adding more. This is not about adding more.
Yeah.
It really isn't. It's about optimizing the interactions you already have. For example, everybody says they don't have time, but that minute that you log on to that Teams call a little bit early and someone else is on the call that you should check in on, great leaders, instead of putting themselves on mute and opening up a tab and firing off another email, will keep their video on and say, hey, Janet, I was thinking about that meeting you were nervous about last week. How did that go? If someone notices that someone was frustrated in a meeting, great leaders won't just say, okay, on to my next meeting. They'll give a quick call, maybe on their way to the next meeting, and say, hey, I noticed you were frustrated in that meeting. Is that right? Do you want to talk about that sometime next week? Great leaders who, when they're saying good job, or they don't celebrate wins, they celebrate the people who are making the wins possible. Will say, instead of just saying, hey, great job, great quarter, you met the numbers, is great. They'll say, hey, I noticed you all were incredibly creative, incredibly efficient. And I noticed so-and-so and so-and-so really putting forth this type of effort. And I want to show you, because I can see it as a leader. I can show the ripple effect you have in the organization. Let me bring in a client customer story and let me show you the effect that you had. Those things do not take more time. They take skill, they take intention, they take skill, and they take consistency. And it takes optimizing the interactions we already have. You have plenty of interactions throughout your day. The problem is that your interactions are probably transactional. So you're saying, give me a status update. Give me an update on this project. What's the update on that? Where are the numbers of that? You're extracting from people without regenerating people's energy. And I will also add one more point. Every executive listening, what is one financial metric that is not mediated through a human being? You can't name one. And then if I asked you, what's the ideal state of that human being? Everybody's smart who's listening. You'll probably say, oh, they should be motivated. They should have energy. Well, think about the last time you were energized to do something when you felt that you or what you were doing didn't matter. If I were to summarize the work motivation research in one line, I would say, for the past century, I would say it's impossible for anything to matter to someone who doesn't first believe that they matter. So when you are doing this,
that's a line. Wait.
Well, it is. It really is.
No. Repeat that again, because I think
it's impossible for anything to matter to someone who doesn't first believe that they matter. If you want someone to care about your strategic initiatives, about their work, they first have to feel cared for. So the leading indicator of all the lagging indicators you say you want is human energy. And that's inarguable. I think we can all agree on that. So are you strategically optimizing interactions to regenerate the human energy you need to accomplish the very things you care about?
Wow.
So is that worth the time? That's
right?
If you don't have the time for that, you probably don't have the time to be a leader.
Right. That's, I think, the moral of the story, as you say it. So,
and it's easy for me to say that. Look, I study how people work. The luxury of my job is I don't have to do your jobs. Everybody listening, I know that. But what we do know is we have some objective data that shows very clearly that organizations who tend to be sustainably productive, perform sustainably, have practices, procedures, and skills scaled throughout the organization in which people's energy to contribute is regenerated through making sure they feel valued and know exactly how they add value.
So, Zach, question for you. And I think this one is a little bit bigger, because I think what you're saying is right on. And I think it's people listening are probably, taking this in. What's going on in the world right now? So we are divided. We're not seeing people. We're stuck on our opinions, our beliefs. We're not really focused on whether someone matters. It's what my opinion is, what I think about, what I want. We've pretty much said, on some level, that inclusion doesn't matter as much, diversity doesn't matter as much. Depending, right? I don't want to get into politics here, but what would you say to people in the world today and how they could apply this concept of mattering to make the world better?
No one can take away your power to show up in your next interaction and see, hear, and value the other person, even if you disagree with them. People try to take that power away from you by baiting you into being disgusted by someone else. Disgust is one of the primal human emotions that we evolved for things that could potentially harm us, like pathogens in our environment. You know, it's why the piece of rotten fruit in front of you makes you feel that visceral reaction, because we evolved disgust to keep us alive. But there are people who use that to make you feel that towards other human beings. We were never meant to feel that towards others. And once we allow someone to bait us into that, we stop seeking to understand them. We also stop seeking to understand somebody the moment we label them. This is called the Pygmalion effect. And the Pygmalion effect, it comes from the late 1960s. There was a psychologist named Robert Rosenthal, and he told teachers that he gave their students an IQ test. And he told one group of teachers that their students were unlikely to blossom, unlikely to bloom. They were underperformers. He told the other group of teachers that their students were high performers. But there was nothing, he made those up.
Right.
And then he actually did actual IQ tests again at the end of the year. And the students who had teachers who were told that they were unlikely to bloom had 26-point lower average IQ tests, because they were invested in at lower rates. So here's what I mean by that. How we see people affects how we treat them. How we treat them affects how they see themselves, which affects how they act. So many toxic behaviors in our society, in our organizations, are actually our very making. If you see someone as difficult, as a jerk, they will see themselves as that way. They will act more like that way, and the cycle continues. The way to do this is to break the labels. Before you evaluate, seek understanding relentlessly. And I think this is what great leaders do. I will add one more wrinkle to this, is we're getting worse at it. So there's a real thing called social skill decay. So for the past 25 years, we've been able to communicate with one another in short digital transactions, tweets, text messages, Slack messages. Every time, for example, if you tell me you're frustrated about something and I say, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," thumbs down emoji. Every time we do that, we actually get out of the social situation in which we learn to deal with disagreement.
Yeah.
If you give me some bad news and I can just send you a sad face and say, "Sorry to hear that, let's catch up next week," and then I could put my phone down, and so too I put you out of my mind, I am losing an opportunity to develop the skill to show compassion. So think about this. There are many people in our workplaces who have never had to show compassion to another human being in real time.
Yeah.
If I were to show you a graph on our time spent socializing in every age group over the past 20 years, it would go down in every age group. And so we're lacking the social repetitions needed to develop the social skills that are needed to combat what's happening in society and in our organizations. So this is what the good news. And what's hopeful about this is we can relearn these skills, we can recommit to these skills, and we can take back our power to show up in the next interaction and make sure people feel noticed, affirmed, and needed.
Yeah. So Zach, there's so much here. There's so much richness in what you're talking about. I think it's so timely. I know we don't have all day to talk about this, and I wish we did, because I think this isn't just a little snippet. It's such an important topic. But just offer, as we close here, some words of wisdom and advice to anybody listening about how they can apply this in their lives, not just at work, not just because you're a leader in your life, right? So how can you apply this right now?
One of the things that happens, and one of the reasons why this is common sense, but it's not common practice, is that we tend to underestimate our impact on other people, which leads us to underact. So for example, think of someone you rely on your team, in your life. Now think about the last time you explicitly told them. Often there's a gap. The John Templeton Foundation did a study and found that 90% of Americans could name one person they're grateful for. But less than 30% of that same sample said they told them in the last 2 weeks. So there's a gap between our intention and our action. So close that gap. Schedule your good intentions, as I say. If you have that thought to check in on someone, to thank somebody, put it on your calendar, put it on your to-do list, elevate it from common sense to common practice. The next thing I would say is that your next great leadership act is really your next interaction. When we survey people and research on what people and ask them what makes a great leader, they talk about interactions, how their leader showed up for them in a standalone interaction. It's not big actions. Although LinkedIn would try to bait you into posting about your product launch or post about some big action or big engagement score or a best workplace award that we're all pursuing. What people really remember is how they feel in everyday interactions. Notice how no one on LinkedIn posts, I remembered someone's full name today. But those are actually the very things that we find make great leaders. So focus on your everyday interactions. And then the third piece of advice that I would have for all leaders here is to really ask yourself do our leaders in my organization have the skills to make this come alive every day? And where do we need to start? How do we need to start investing in developing and reteaching those human skills that we've lost? And I'm going to add a little wrinkle, one more wrinkle as we close. In the age of, I don't think it's the age of AI. Everybody's calling it the age of AI. I think it's the age of human trust. Because AI can do our tasks, it cannot take moral responsibility for them. AI can do our operational work, it cannot be accountable to other human beings. So what does that mean? Well, the scarcest commodity, as more people use AI, is going to be human trust. And so if your people do not have the skills to cultivate human trust in this next generation, then yes, they can be replaced by AI. But that's why those human skills to care, which is the foundation of trust, I think are going to be more important than ever. And the World Economic Forum just found that by 2030, the most in-demand skills are things like empathy, compassion, curiosity. And why is that? It's because AI can do our operational and technical tasks, but it cannot care.
Wow. It's a great way to close, Zach. Thank you. I thank you for sharing all these incredible words of wisdom. Like I said, we're linking your book because I think it is, and I don't promote books on this podcast, but because I think this is such an important topic, I do want to give a plug for your book because I think it's something that everybody needs to read. Every leader needs to read.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Janet.